First, a small announcement. I started a new full-time job 2 weeks ago at a music shop, which gives me access to some amazing instruments and equipment. So hopefully there are some exciting videos coming up with regards to that. That having been said, the topic of this particular video is how I pick songs for a set. When somebody hires me to play somewhere, I have guidelines in the back of my mind that I follow, which I'm going to share with you in this video. But let's get into it. One of the first things I always think about when it comes to picking songs is how can I challenge myself? How can I improve on my skills? And the reason is because one of the best ways that I've learned to motivate myself to practice harder is in preparation for a gig. I don't want to look like an idiot when I get up on stage, so I am going to be working hard to make sure I sound good. Now, 3 weeks ago, I booked a gig, which I actually played yesterday. It was a 20-minute time slot, which for me equates to around 4 songs. Depends on how long the songs are, but that's about the average that I tend to work on. But because I only had 3 weeks, I chose to not do anything too difficult, not too above my skill level, but still songs that are a bit of a challenge that I can improve my skills. One of those songs is a song that I know really well, real easy, but I decided to add in my looping station so that I could do the lead break that I normally do if I had a band with me, except this time I'm playing solo. More on the band versus solo thing later. The other 3 songs, are challenging songs that I needed to put work into. And like I say, playing a gig is a very good way to motivate yourself to practice. One of the songs was a song that I wrote, and so therefore had some things that I've never really played before, but it's a good opportunity to develop new skills. One of the songs I did was Little Red Riding Hood, which necessitated me playing a lead break, which had arpeggios of the basic chord progression for the verse, but also a little bit of a melody on top of that. So it involves working out which chord shapes are going to match with the melody and so on and so forth. The point is, having a gig to plan for is a very useful motivating factor to get yourself to learn new things. Another factor for me is if I'm playing solo versus if I'm playing in a band. Now, the majority of gigs that I've played in my life have been solo, just me playing guitar and singing. But I have had the privilege of playing with other musicians as well. And it really changes the whole dynamic. It changes the whole setup. There's so much more you can do if you're playing in a band, which isn't to say that you're necessarily super limited if it's just you on guitar. You still have options. There's still a lot you can do. But they are very different. Right? Playing solo is very different to playing in a band. I've got some songs here to give you, for examples. There's a difference between playing Country Roads that you can play solo, right? Versus if you're playing something like Johnny B. Good, so it's very much a band song. I mean, the song starts out with a lead break, which is going to sound very thin if you don't have a drummer backing you and a rhythm guitarist and a bass guitarist. Another example would be something like Have You Ever Seen the Rain versus Born to Be Wild. Born to Be Wild is a rock song. It's drum heavy. There's a lot of guitar in that, multiple guitarists. I'm sure people have done acoustic versions of all of these songs, but I don't know, when it's one guitarist playing something like Hotel California, it can sound thin if you're not careful. What I'm saying is playing solo definitely requires a bit of work to get it to sound good. You can't just listen to the CD and try to copy that. You're going to have to polish it and work with it and find ways to fill out what would normally be thin without other bandmates. So who I'm playing with definitely dictates the kinds of songs that I'm going to be using in my set. Another thing that's important when choosing songs is vocal ranges and vocal styles. So everybody has a unique vocal range. We categorize these things, soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, and so on and so forth. But the reality is we're all kind of unique. right? So I'm a baritone, but my baritone is not going to be exactly the same range as Michael Bublé's baritone, for instance. I believe he's baritone, is he? Anyways, the point is, I kind of have to be careful that the songs I pick are going to fit into that range. There are certain artists that I just don't really do, not because I dislike them. I just cannot sing the range that they're singing. For instance, someone like James Blunt, brilliant artist. Most of his songs I can't vocally make it work. I just don't have the range to be able to reach those notes. Yes, I can drop things down. You know, I can transpose songs, but you can only do that so far before maybe it's just me, but it starts to affect things. It starts to change the song that I don't know. It doesn't work as well as it does if you James Blunt and reaching that high G, for instance. So vocal range does matter. The other thing I'll point out, there are artists like Freddie Mercury, for instance, reportedly had a 4-octave range. Whether that's true, I don't know. My range, I can tell you, is just over 2 octaves. I mean, I'm not saying I have a fantastic range, but there are songs of Queen that are outside of that range. There's no way for me to put that. Well, there does not exist a key that I can put that where I'll be able to reach the highest and the lowest notes. It's not going to happen. And I've never liked the idea of, you know, the chorus is meant to go up an octave, but I'm just not going to go up an octave. I've never really liked that idea, that way of doing things. So vocal range matters. I would say it might not be the most important thing on this list, but it does matter. Vocal style, though, is another thing that's... so I have spent 20 years, just over 20 years, singing folk and blues. Is the style that I generally market myself as, okay? More folk than blues, to be fair. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm not a jazz singer. I'm not a heavy metal singer. I cannot do screams or growls or things like that. It doesn't fit what my vocal skills can do, right? It's just not what I've trained in. So there are lots of songs that I'm not going to really do because they don't really match the style that I sing. Yeah, so be aware of the vocal style that you have developed. And try to pick songs that fit your vocal style and the way that you like to sing. Every artist is unique. You might feel most comfortable singing Michael Bublé type songs, for instance. You know, that sort of relaxed, jazzy type feel. Or you might feel more comfortable with something like Kurt Cobain, that very grunge. It's the way he sings, it's almost not meant to sound like it's a highly polished voice, right? Because it's grunge. Pick the style that you're most comfortable singing, is basically what I'm saying, and then pick songs that fit that style. All right, this next tip tends to be lowest on my list in terms of choosing songs, and that is the venue where I'm playing, or the people that I'm playing for, I suppose you could also say. There is a big difference, huge difference, between playing at a music festival where there could be 1,000 people and playing in a pub or an open mic event where there's like maybe 100 people. And it's meant to be folky, it's meant to be just a guitar and singing. They don't want anything that's too overproduced. They're not looking for bands usually. It's more just, you know, people who are starting out. It's worlds apart. If I'm playing at a festival, for instance, on a stage with a band, it's a much bigger experience. We can do so much more. We can have so much more production quality, right? It's events like that where I'll take my laptop with, well, I did a festival 2 years ago, where it was just me on stage. I was playing solo. But because it was on stage in front of just over 1,000 people, I took my laptop, which had backing tracks. I had a drumming track. I had a looping station. I had much more technology to help me sound bigger. Because you can imagine, you've got this massive stage and one dude sitting in the middle. it can sound thin in such a big hall, versus the majority of gigs I do, which are open mics and in pubs and things. I like the idea of smaller crowds. I just do. But in that type of setting, you don't want such a big sound. You want it to be intimate. You want it to be just a guitar and singing. Because you can connect with the audience on a much more personal level. At least I've found that personally. So that also kind of has an impact on the kinds of songs that I'm going to choose. I guess it's very similar to if you're playing in a band versus playing solo. It's a similar concept. But yeah, where I'm playing does kind of matter. The final thing to consider is what instruments and equipment am I going to have access to when I do this gig. Most of the recent gigs I've done, either I've taken my own sound system, or I've been told, look, we've got a sound system there, we can give you 3 channels. And when they say 3 channels, they're generally referring to a microphone, instruments of your choice, and for instance, a laptop for backing tracks, or a beat pedal, or something like that. Now, I am a multi-instrumentalist, so I've played piano, for instance, in some decently fancy restaurants like Jazz and stuff like that. I've also played folk guitar in pubs. I've played drums in various circumstances, all sorts of different things that I've played in all sorts of different venues. But I prefer, if I can, to not have to bring everything that I own to every gig. It's just too much equipment to carry around. And so knowing what equipment I've got access to can help me decide what songs I want to play. There are certain songs that I just prefer performing on piano. There's certain other songs I prefer performing on guitar. I could do Country Roads on piano if I wanted to, but I prefer doing it on guitar. I could do Piano Man on guitar if I wanted to. A lot of people do it, but I prefer doing it on piano since that's what Billy Joel used. So knowing what equipment I'm going to be taking with me does help me make that decision as to what songs I'm going to choose. Now, I actually did a gig just yesterday afternoon in which it was a 20-minute slot, which for me generally equates to around 4 songs. And the songs that I picked were In My Life by the Beatles, Hey There Little Red Riding Hood. It's just a fun little song that's featured in a couple of movies. Then I did one of my own instrumental pieces on guitar, and then Knocking on Heaven's Door. Those were my 4 pieces. I chose them because it was an open mic setting, not open mic, that's not really the right word. There were a bunch of us playing there, a bunch of different acts, which meant the changeover needed to be quick, right? I don't have time to carry a keyboard and a guitar and all sorts of other things onto stage, and I'm then just going to have to unplug once I'm done. In My Life was chosen because it's a song that I used to do with the band in the previous location that I lived. I moved city the end of 2022, and I used to play lead guitar for that specific song, which meant that I played a very limited amount. My friend Dave actually played the rhythm section, but I did sing it. So I knew how the song went very well, but I had to learn the acoustic portion. Therefore, it was a challenge. It improved my skills. Hey There Little Red Riding Hood was a song that I knew. There wasn't much to learn there, really. Well, except for the lead break. That was something that I added in, again, just to challenge myself. Knocking on Heaven's Door was a song that I've played so many times that I didn't even have to really practice it. The acoustic song that I wrote it specifically for this event. I had 3 weeks to plan this thing, so I wrote a song that was relatively simple, a nice easy chord progression that I just improvised on top of. The bottom line is all of these songs were chosen with the points I've just given you in mind. I'm not really sure what else I can really add to this, so I'm just going to say thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while since I put a video out, but I did just start a new job. I'm hoping to be able to carry on doing this. I don't know that my videos are going to be as regular. I am trying. But I will see you guys in the next one. If you have enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Costs nothing, but it's totally up to you. And I'll see you next time.